Behold, everyone, Luffy. He's not glowing at the moment, but we're going to fix that in a second. Let me just set him down right there. Sorry about that, Barry. Okay, and boom! He's glowing now. Isn't that cool? I was sorting through all my fan mail, and I found that in the stack. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember when I got that thing. It's like a cool little stand, and like you put Luffy in it, and he lights up, and that's cool. And it's not really talking about Luffy today, but we're talking about Boa a little bit. I mean, she's not even the main focus. We're talking about Granny Neon, Gloriosa, because she turns out she's a member of the Rocks Pirates now. Didn't call that, but all right, well, we'll talk about it today. But it's nice. It's nice. You could see, like, okay, if this kind of technology, as advanced as it is, I'm not even sure Vegapunk is up to this level yet, but if this kind of technology existed in the One Piece world, you know that Boa would have a giant version of this in the castle on Amazon Lily of Luffy, right? In fact, we saw Amazon Lily ever since Luffy visited, and Boa has since commissioned a giant tapestry to be hung from the walls of the castle that has Luffy's, like, wanted poster on it, you know, like Luffy's image, like, hi everybody. So yeah, I'm just gonna ask this straight up. Do you think that Boa has a life-size statue of Luffy in her bed chambers? I'm not going in any particular direction of that. I'm just asking if she has something like that. I have a feeling she does. All right, there it is. Okay. But yeah, winding it back a little bit from Boa, talking about Granny Neon, or Gloriosa, former Empress of Amazon Lily from 3 generations past, and as we saw in the last couple of chapters of One Piece, member of the Rocks Pirates. We got to see a lot of the Rocks Pirates, the most notable ones, at least, minus the captain. We got to see pretty much all the major members except the guy that the crew is named after, but we heard his voice. We heard Rocks, we just didn't see him. We got to see Whitebeard, we got to see Shiki, I'm assuming Wang was in there somewhere. We got to see a bunch of people, and we got to see Gloriosa, all right? Now, first of all, I was a little surprised by that. I think a lot of people were. Way back at Sabaody, when Shaki was talking to Luffy and the Straw Hats and everything, she drops a piece of lore about herself where she says, oh yeah, your grandfather, Garp, he would chase me around in the seas back when I was a pirate around 40 years ago. Well, God Valley takes place 38 years ago, so 40 years ago, the Rocks pirate crew were in full operations, you know, just tormenting the seas. It was well and truly their era, okay? So you put 2 and 2 together and you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. You know, 40 years ago, Shaki looks really good for her age. She's like 65 years old, so around 40 years ago, she'd be 25 years old. You could see her as a member of the Rocks crew, okay? And so I assumed that's where we were gonna, you know, see her. But no, we actually got her predecessor. We got Gloriosa, who was the 3rd generation Empress of Amazon Lily, and Shaki, or Shakyaku, was the 2nd generation Empress of Amazon Lily. The former Empress, so the one right before Boa, we don't know anything about other than the fact that she contracted love sickness and she died. And then the current Empress is, of course, Boa Hancock, all right? So that's how that kind of all shakes down. And I made a video about that in terms of the actual structure. But diving a little bit more into this today, we're going to kind of examine the life of Granny Neon that we know about. Oddly enough, we do not know her age. This was something, despite all of the Vivre cards and data book entries and everything, we do not know Granny Neon's age, which actually surprised me as well. A lot of surprise coming about this character. A character that's been in the story now since like chapter 500 or some such. We know when Luffy landed at Amazon Lily, Granny Neon was introduced. And I guess, like, the way she was introduced, like, even in her first appearance, kind of. Well, I guess her first appearance was when they were trying to pull Luffy's equipment off, and she had to be the one to show up and be like, no, don't pull that off! That is a man! What? It's a man? So what's the thing in between his, oh! It's just like, okay. Yeah, so that was her first appearance. But her next appearance is Luffy kind of ran off, and so he's going to end up crashing into the bathroom in a moment. But Granny Neon goes to approach Boa when she comes back from her little excursion dealing with Momonga and the Marines, when the Marines were inviting Boa to go and be part of the war at Marineford. And he's like, well, not really so much inviting. It was more of an ultimatum. It's like, you join us in the war or we attack your island. Pick one. And Hancock was just like, okay, bet. I'm calling your bluff. I'm not joining your war, and if you can come and, attack our island and wipe us out, you're welcome to try. You know what I mean? And, that is actually, you wonder about that, given the fact of Boa's ability and how we really saw it be used, especially when the Marines and Blackbeard attacked her island. Boa's power is kind of like a one-hit kill ability, honestly. It petrifies you. Sure, you're not technically dead unless you get completely destroyed, I guess. And Boa has this power to pretty much petrify essentially anyone she wants, even inanimate objects and stuff like the Pacifistas. So her power is crazy strong. So you can kind of understand her arrogance there, at least a little bit. I mean, Boa, when Boa was first introduced, her arrogance and narcissism were off the freaking charts. But the idea is like, yeah, she kind of does have the power to back that up. So she comes back to Amazon Lily, and Granny Neon is there, and she's like, Empress, what did you say to the Marines? And she's like, I'm not going. I'm not fighting in their war. But you must, or they'll invade our island. Everyone will die. And this is actually a good point that Boa brings up that actually hints at Neon's, or Gloriosa is her real name, Gloriosa's backstory. Boa looks at Granny Neon and says, you're only worried about saving your own skin, aren't you? You don't really care about the island. You don't care about the Shichibukai Alliance or the Marines or the world government or anything. You just personally don't want to die. So that's why you're asking me to go to the war. And Granny Neon, actually, she pulls out her crystal ball because she's also like a seer, although it's a joke because she's like, I will gaze into my crystal ball and see what will happen. You should probably go. And then she just takes out a Sharpie and then just writes, like, go to Marineford now on the crystal ball. And that's when Boa grabs her and throws her out of the freaking palace, like with Kuzco and that old man, you know what I mean? But before that, Gloriosa, when she pulls out her crystal ball, is like, I'm not worried about my own life. I've lived a long and full life. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the island and the Kuja and the future of the tribe in general, okay? So that's something very interesting that Gloriosa brought up. She's like, I'm not really concerned about my own life. I've lived a long life. At this point, Gloriosa, she has to be at least in her mid to late 80s, if not older. If you were to tell me she was 90, I would buy it. 85 is kind of on the lower end of that. But yeah, I would say, okay, if she was 85, oh God, I'm going to have to do math here. Okay, wait, I'm going to round up. So 38 years ago was God Valley. So if she's 85 right now, wind that back about 40 years, she would have been 47 at God Valley, correct? Which she looked, at God Valley, she looked remarkably like Boa does now. Now, Boa takes good care of herself and everything like that, so I don't think Boa at age 40, she's 30 right now, Boa at age 40 is probably not going to look too different from the way she looks right now, okay? This is One Piece, where it's like, you're doing okay until you hit your 70s, maybe your 80s, and all of a sudden, like, immediately you just, like, shrivel up, because, Gloriosa did used to look exactly like Boa, like right down to the way they dressed, and then and then the hair and like everything, okay? So maybe she could have been that 47. Okay, and wait, no, I guess she could be like that age, but maybe a little earlier than that. Maybe she could be 80. Okay, if she's 80 right now, then she would have been 42 at God Valley, correct? Yeah, if she was 80 right now, she would have been 42 at God Valley, which is maybe a little bit more believable. But at any rate, we have Granny Neon, who's probably in her 80s, and then we have Shaki, who's in her 60s, and then we have Boa herself, Boa Hancock, who's in her, she just turned 30. So you have another Empress in there that would probably be around late 40s, early 50s kind of thing, and that was the Empress before Boa Hancock, okay? So anyway, Boa grabs Neon, throws her out of the palace. She lands on her feet like a damn cat. Like, she like spins through the air and like lands on the ground. He's like, oh my God, Granny Neon, are you okay? Did somebody just throw you from on top? He's like, oh, I'm fine. I might be shriveled and old like a raisin, but I was still a warrior of the Kuja. And just like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Yeah, all right. So, yeah, so at that point, also, in that whole dialogue, there was a moment where Boa was looking down on Gloriosa, and she was like, former Empress of Amazon Lily. So Oda had this all planned out, like, at the beginning. Like, if you go back and reread Amazon Lily, which I recommend, yeah, there's many references to the Empresses that came before, and Oda probably already had, like, okay, you had, Gloriosa 3 generations ago, Shaki 2, former Empress, and then Boa. Now, flash forward a couple chapters after Luffy crashes into the bathhouse and sees Boa, and then she tries to use the Love Beam, and it doesn't work, and then they go to the gladiatorial arena, and then they have the fight and everything with the, Sandersonia and Marigold and all that stuff. They have the party afterwards. Flash forward through all of that, okay? They go to Boa to try to get a boat so Luffy can go to save his brother at Impel Down, okay? So they have to go and request a passage off the island from, the Empress. So they go to Boa. She is taken in with love sickness, okay? So she's in bed. She's sick. She's, like, gripping her chest. It's like this intense burning pain that she just, no doctor on the island can figure out what's wrong with her or anything like that. And that's when Granny Neon states that love is a hurricane. There's a saying in the Eastern Seas, love is always a hurricane. I don't know if that Eastern Seas part, I was rereading it, and I was like, wait a minute, the Eastern Seas specifically, love is always a hurricane, huh? Wonder if that's going to tie back into anything. I don't know, because she mentioned the East specifically there. But anyway, she goes on to say that there is a condition called love sickness that seems to exclusively afflict the empresses of Amazon Lily, because all 4 of them that we know of, and presumably the ones that even came before Gloriosa, were stricken with this illness at some point. So Gloriosa mentions, I had this illness. I had this love sickness where I had to leave the island and I had to, pursue the one that I loved. And then that was the cure for the sickness. If you stay on the island and refuse to leave, then you will die, which is what happened to the former Empress right before Boa Hancock, okay? And what's also fascinating in that one panel is that not only does Gloriosa say that I had the affliction and I was cured, but the person that came after me had the affliction and was also cured, and that was Shaki. Now, with Shaki, it makes sense, because Shaki is obviously with Rayleigh. So they're together, they're married. The way they refer to each other is like a Japanese term for like person of my household. It's essentially a honorific or a term used exclusively for like married couples. Like that's how they use it. And the idea is, yeah, Rayleigh and Shaki are together. They're essentially, maybe not like married in like a church, but like common law married. They've been living together for a while, okay? They're a couple. They're an item, okay? Obviously, right? So that's the situation with that. Then we get to the person that came after Shaki and before Boa, which could very well be Boa's mom. Not exactly. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I'm not saying this is a direct line, but it could very well be Boa's mother. Just because this is One Piece and most mothers have to be dead at some point. I mean, can you name one mom that's still alive in One Piece? Luffy, probably not. Zoro, definitely not. Usopp, no. Nami, double no. Both of her moms are probably dead. Although, who knows? Maybe the whole thing from the Oikok Kingdom will come back and like, Nami's real mom was alive the whole time. Brooke's mom is long dead. Frankie's mom was a pirate. She's probably dead. Sanji's mom, definitely. Robin's mom, definitely dead. Chopper's mom was a reindeer, probably dead at this point. I don't know how long reindeers live. Can you name Jinbei's mom? Don't know anything about her, but probably dead. Can you name one mom in this story that's still alive? No, you can't, all right? So it's like, yeah, Boa's mom, she's probably dead, right? Okay, so Boa Hancock really detested Gloriosa. Like, she threw her out of the damn palace, right? Okay, and she says to her, the only reason you are allowed to stay on this island was because the former Empress took pity on you. Because you abandoned your people, Gloriosa. You abandoned your position as Empress, and you fled this country for decades. And then when you finally came back, it was the benevolence of the former Empress that allowed you to come back and live in exile on the edge of the village. And so the way that Boa is talking about this is like, that was the former Empress's, kindness. I am beholden to no such thing. I will, I guess, have to tolerate you being on the island, but I don't like you very much, and don't get ahead of yourself thinking that, oh, you were a former Empress so you could boss me around. I'm Boa Hancock. I boss myself around, and she throws Granny Neon out the window. Okay. Boa's personality was absolute dog shit at the beginning of when she was first introduced, just to say. Because later on, you find out that when Boa and Marigold and Sandersonia were kidnapped by the Tenryubito and then they escaped when Fisher Tiger raided the place, the person that found them in the cracks of the Red Line and was responsible for bringing them back to Amazon Lily was Gloriosa. And Boa repays her kindness by chucking her out of like a 10-story window. You know, hopefully meeting Luffy, I guess, like, softened her personality a bit. But, man, keep in mind, Boa was the kind of person that was, like, kicking puppies and baby seals. I hope she doesn't do that anymore. I really do. But at the beginning, it was pretty damn brutal, all right? So, anyway, you find out about that, right? So now, I think it all kind of clicks together. Let me paint you an image here, okay? So, Gloriosa was the Empress 3 generations back. All right. It seems like Boa became the Empress when she was like 18, so let's assume the same thing happened with Gloriosa. Around 18 years old, she becomes the Empress of Amazon Lily. She hangs out on Amazon Lily for a while, but then maybe something happens. Maybe the Rocks pirates attack the island or something like that, or, you know, some encounter occurs. It's a little bit dubious. Sometimes, like, Boa met Luffy and then was immediately stricken with the lovesickness. The implication is that you don't necessarily have to meet a man. It's just the idea that eventually lovesickness is going to hit you and you have to leave the island at some point to cure it or you'll die, okay? So in the case with Boa, the impetus for that was Luffy coming to the island, but I think you would be afflicted with lovesickness no matter what, regardless. But at one point, Gloriosa had that, and so she went away. She left the island. She eventually got recruited on the Rocks Pirates, and she was a member of that crew for a long time. Now, after God Valley, 38 years ago, the Rocks Pirates were no more. And at that point, Gloriosa, she spent some time on the Sabaody Archipelago because she knew Rayleigh and she knew Shaki. Okay, so they were probably, like, you know, living on the Sabaody Archipelago together for a little while there. But she was definitely away from Amazon Lily, Gloriosa was, for several decades. Like, she would have had to be away for a long time because by the time God Valley was happening 38 years ago, Boa hadn't even been born yet. Okay, so when Boa, I think, was 8, I think that was when they were all kidnapped by the Tenryubito, taken away. That's when they were fed their devil fruits and everything. So, yeah, we're talking, like, at least a good 16 years from God Valley to when Boa was captured, and then she and her sisters, I think they were like teenagers when Fisher Tiger attacked and freed them. So we're probably talking close to 20 years, if not greater, from when the Rocks Pirates disbanded and then Gloriosa found Boa and her sisters in the rocks of the Red Line and brought them back to Amazon Lily. So she was definitely traveling the world for a while there, okay? So what if the previous Empress before Boa Hancock was Boa's mother? Which also Sandersonia and Marigold's mother as well. So, when the former Empress, Gloriosa, brings her children back to her, of course, she is absolutely ecstatic, and she's happy. She's like, oh my God, you brought my children back to me. Thank you so much, Gloriosa. You know what? I don't care that you abandoned this island and you committed the taboo and you left and everything like that, you know, to find love, to be with a man or something. I don't care. You saved my kids. You will always have a place on this island, right? Like, and that's how Gloriosa was welcomed back on the island and kind of spent her retirement years, okay? Then she gets lovesickness. Boa's predecessor, maybe her mom, but the previous Empress gets lovesickness. She doesn't leave the island. She decides, maybe she's just like, I am not going to abandon my people. I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to tough it out. The sickness is probably just a bunch of bullshit anyway. I'm probably not going to actually die. And then she dies. So that happens. And then Boa becomes the next Empress, also becomes a warlord at, like, the same time. She became Empress, like, I think, like, right around the time she was 18. So I think, like, Empress and then Warlord, it all happened at, like, the same time for her, Boa. She was, like, one of the warlords for, like, the longest period of time. So, yeah, Boa becomes an Empress and then begins treating Granny Neon like shit. For some reason. I don't know why. That's the person that saved you. I don't know why you treat you like crap, but she does. Then again, Boa's ego was very high at this point there. Even people like Rayleigh, she copped an attitude towards, you know what I mean? It's a little intense for Boa there, but, you know, she's doing a little better than she used to. So, I'm thinking it's something like that. Maybe Boa's mom was the former empress. Could have been, maybe not. And then, she decided to not leave the island and she died. So, yeah, don't mess with the love sickness. That's definitely a thing. Now, Shaki, on the other hand, Shaki was still a pirate at one point and was chased around by Garp at another point. Could it be possible that Shaki and Gloriosa were on the Rocks crew at the same time? It is feasible. Maybe Shaki left before God Valley, because Shaki did say around 40 years ago. Now, she might have just been rounding up or whatever. Also, because it was also mentioned Shaki, I think, is the same. She left as well. Or maybe she didn't leave. Maybe Shaki did not leave until a little later to be with Rayleigh. Maybe at the time of God Valley, Gloriosa was on the Rocks crew, and Shaki was the captain and empress of the Kuja pirates, okay? Because he had the Kuja pirate crew, then the empress was the captain of that crew and would sail around and pillage and everything like that. So maybe it was a situation like that. Maybe while Gloriosa was doing that, Shaki was truly the empress, and then, obviously she was fighting against Garp in the Navy, but also ran into Roger and Rayleigh at one point. This would have been a little bit later. This would probably have been like, 20-something years ago, and so she met Rayleigh, fell in love with Rayleigh, contracted the love sickness, and then, had to go off and be with him at Sabaody. So there's a couple of decades here of space that is a little bit, like, missing. Now, I don't think there's a relation with them. Like, I assumed that the predecessor of Boa was her mom. That might be way off. Like, you have to understand, Amazon Lily, the whole idea is that strength is beauty. Okay, or beauty is strength, and we find that out when Oda is first, like, talking about the island. So it would make sense that from one empress to the next empress, it's not really a situation of, like, a blood relation or anything like that. Like, I don't think, like, Shaki is Gloriosa's daughter. I guess that could be the case, but not really. But if that's the case, then Shaki would have to be Boa's grandmother, and I don't think that the ages line up for that. I just don't think that's possible, right? So it might just be a situation kind of less about hereditary, and it's more about, like, the Kenpachi thing from Bleach, where it's like the next Kenpachi has, like, a battle with the former Kenpachi, and whoever wins is the new Kenpachi. Kind of a situation like that, where maybe the former empress challenges the new empress, and they fight, or maybe there's a tournament. If one of the empresses dies, like the former empress died of love sickness, like, and then it's like, okay, we will now select a new empress, and then they had a big battle, and I mean, they have the gladiatorial arena. Why else have the gladiatorial arena? You know what I mean? You got to get use out of your gladiatorial arena. So you're going to have the arena. You're going to have, like, okay, the next empress, whoever wins this big tournament. And Boa won, and she became the next empress of Amazon Lily. It could have just been like something like that. I'm not really sure. But yeah, Oda clearly had all this stuff lined up, like, years ago, like during the Amazon Lily arc, like well over a decade ago. So I have a pretty strong faith that wherever this is going, it's going to fit rather well into the story. But there are still some gaps that we need to fill in, so I look forward to seeing that. But anyway, yeah. Now, Gloriosa, another thing, too. From what we understand, Gloriosa doesn't have a devil fruit, and she was a member of Rox's crew. Rox's crew had a bunch of real strong characters. Some of them had devil fruits, some of them didn't. Like, Shiki had the float fruit, I guess, at that point. Captain John, I guess, doesn't have a devil fruit. Kaido, at this point, didn't have a devil fruit. Big Mom had one. Whitebeard, we don't know if Whitebeard had his Guru no Mi yet. It's just the idea of how strong the Rox crew was without all of their members having devil fruit powers. Gloriosa, I mean, she might be revealed to have one. I don't think we've ever seen Gloriosa, like, get thrown in the water or in the ocean or something like that. So she might have one she just never used, but I doubt it. It just really seems like she doesn't have an ability. Well, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Later. Signing out. Bye. It's so weird ending the video without, like, I feel like at this point it's like, okay, guys, back to snake facts. It's just like, no, it's just, it's done. It's over. I have to get used to ending videos normally again.